Hello and welcome. I'm Marletha Williams, the Supply Diversity Program Manager for the Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve System located in Washington, D.C., and your moderator today. Thank you for joining us. We have a very exciting show for you today. We have Meet the Program Managers of the United States Currency and Education Program. We have our project managers, Jillian Butikali, we have Jessica Chu, and we have Krista Crosby, also a project manager. So today we're going to be discussing our two upcoming acquisitions, and the two upcoming acquisitions are the AWS infrastructure and the web application and mobile application for the currency education program as well. So before we get started, we would like to actually take a poll question. We would like to take a poll question regarding how well do you know your money? So we want to know how many trees does it take to actually produce a 100 Federal Reserve 100 note? So for those of you who are joining us for the first time for our summer series, we would like to welcome you. And previously, we have hosted the summer series regarding the Paycheck Protection Loan Program. We actually had the SBA to host that event with us. We also hosted Tips on Winning Contracts with the Federal Reserve Board. So today, we're actually providing you information on key requirements on how to participate in our upcoming contracts. So before we get started again, I would like to bring in our panel. So our first guest today is Jessica Chu. Jessica, welcome.
Thank you, Marletha. So I am your contract management analyst for both of these procurements, and I will be your sole point of contact going forward if you have any questions on either of these procurements. Today, you will have both program managers on the webinar to help you learn what their requirements are, but just please note that going forward, I will be your point of contact. Also, as this will probably be most of your questions, we are hoping to have these requirements go out on the street sometime in early October. And with that, going back to Marletha. Thank you.
Thank you, Jessica. So without further ado, I would like to bring on Jillian Butikali. Jillian is one of our project managers for the Currency Education Program. Welcome, Jillian.
Hello, Marletha. Thank you so much. So, Marletha, let's answer that poll question.
Thank you.
You had asked our participants how many trees it takes to produce a single $100 note, a Federal Reserve note. And the answer is actually none. So our notes are comprised of linen and cotton.
Yeah, thank you so much for taking that question on. So again, share with the audience exactly your role with the Currency Education Program, and the mic is all yours.
Sure. So I'm a project manager and a core here in the Currency Education Program at the board. Thank you so much. So the Currency Education Program, or the CEP here at the board, is tasked with a pretty broad but important mission. We are tasked with educating a global public on the security and design features of Federal Reserve notes, which is American paper money. We are part of the board, so we're a team here at the Fed, and we're within the RBOPS division. We achieve our mission with a variety of different tools, but our primary tools are digital. So we do a lot of digital outreach. Our flagship website is uscurrency.gov, and you can also find us on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter on social media. And you can find our Money Adventure mobile app on the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. Our noteworthy podcast is also on Apple Music. So if we want to advance to the next slide, let's talk a little bit about our AWS infrastructure management contract. And again, advancing to the next slide. So this contract is pretty, I would say, pretty straightforward on its face, but there are a lot of different requirements that we'll be looking for in all of the proposals that we receive. The basic underpin, though, of this contract is that it's for AWS infrastructure management and maintenance for an infrastructure that is already built. We are looking for expertise in a variety of different AWS products and services, including EC2 instances, CloudFront, WAF rules, CloudWatch, S3, and IAM. We are also looking for 24/7 emergency on-call service in the unfortunate but potential case that something went wrong, an instance went down. We would like to have that on-call service available. We're also looking for DevOps expertise. So as you'll learn a little bit more, there are two contracts there. One is for the back end, which is this contract, and then there's a front end contract. And in the middle between those and us, it's DevOps. And we really are looking for this potential awardee to provide those that DevOps experience. We are also looking for really strong, I can't emphasize this enough, really strong security expertise when it comes to managing cloud infrastructures. This is around not just AWS products and services, but a holistic expertise in information security. Then the next thing that this contract is hoping to achieve is a report on a potential migration to GovCloud. So looking to the awardee's expertise to develop a report advising us on whether or not we should move to GovCloud, and if we did, what that migration would look like, what it would cost, what kind of resources would be involved, a timeline, etc. There are also weekly status meetings that we expect the awardee to staff and run, and these coincide generally with our weekly deployments as well for our uscurrency.gov website. And to clarify, the entirety of this contract is to underpin and support and secure the uscurrency.gov public website. Beyond all of this, there is a financial, so a non-technical side. We are looking for the awardee to participate in this as an AWS reseller for us. So if we could advance to the next slide. There are a number of mandatory requirements, key requirements here to focus on. I do obviously encourage you to read the full contract terms, but I wanted to pull out a few requirements here for you that you might want to speak to in your proposal. And so the first thing is to pay very good attention to two sections in particular, and that's section H and section C. These two sections have what I would consider the bulk of the requirements that you'd want to speak to in a proposal. Again, can't stress enough, 24/7, 365 on-call service. So being able to speak to that, maybe you can provide an on-call rotation service, or you generally expect your staff to participate in on-call services. Either way, that is a requirement. We would like to have proof of services, proof of expertise, and there are a variety of ways that you can, in your proposal, prove those things to us. One way is through, obviously, resumes, documenting experience, previous projects worked on. Certificates is also another way. So for some of these positions, a particular certificate is required. And then if the proposed personnel, just as an FYI, don't meet requirements, they will not be eligible to be added to the contract. And so that would potentially not look good on the proposal if the proposed personnel do not meet the underlying requirements that you'll find in sections H and C. And if we could advance to the next slide. So pulling out section H for a second, There are a couple of positions here that they're not the only positions for the contract, but they are what I would consider the two positions that have the most face time with the board. And this is the project manager and the senior AWS architect for the contract. This project manager is my daily contact, so someone that is my first line of contact that I would reach out to if any issues came up. What I'm looking for here is a really detail-oriented, skilled team and project leader, someone who has documented several years or more years of project management experience, who can serve as that daily point of contact, and is an organized team manager, but also a team player. They know how to encourage their team, and maybe they have documented management experience in the past. For the senior AWS architect, what I would really like to see is someone who goes above and beyond just the general certifications, but the AWS Solutions Architect Professional certification is a requirement for this person. Certainly other certifications are desirable, but not necessarily required. 2 or more years maintaining an AWS infrastructure is also a requirement. I can't stress this enough. So 1.5 years does not fulfill this requirement. 1 month shy of 2 years does not fulfill this requirement. It really is 2 or more years of infrastructure management experience. And in addition to these 2 key positions, there are a few others that you will find. And then there's also a non-technical personnel category. That would include people like back office staff or someone who can handle financial reportings during our status meeting. And if you could advance to the next slide. So a few miscellaneous requirements, and you'll find these in section C. You'll also find some of these in section H as well. I would say one of the primary miscellaneous requirements is that, again, proposed personnel really do need to meet all of the professional requirements that is stated in the contract. Beyond just maybe previously holding the position of senior AWS architect or previously being a project manager, there are a number of details there, certifications, experience requirements that need to be met for that person to truly be considered for that role in this contract. If awarded, all personnel who would be working on the contract would need to sign and return the board's NDA to the Corps fairly soon after being awarded the contract. We will provide that NDA to you, and then we keep those signed NDAs on file. It likely goes without saying, but I'll say it anyway. Personnel then must also adhere to the NDAs that they've signed and the contract to which they will eventually be named. Generally, what I do for a contract like this is at the outset, after the kickoff meeting, I will hold a info session, a webinar maybe, but I'll go over some of these requirements so that your personnel aren't just reading a contract in its entirety and just guessing what's a priority. I will explicitly state which items are priorities for us to follow. One thing to keep in mind is for any personnel working on this contract and for anything produced for this contract, all of that is the property of the board, and this is stated fairly clearly in the contract language. So any code product, any written products, spreadsheets, any meeting notes, agenda notes, anything like that would be the property of the board. And let's advance to the next slide. So kind of closing out our discussion about this contract, our work priorities. And I wanted to provide this information to you so that you could know which items are definitely key to hit in your proposals, and maybe even in which order. So the first thing is just to get the basics. This is a web hosting and AWS infrastructure support contract. We're not on this contract necessarily looking for front-end developers or designers. We're really looking for that technical back-end expertise. Having FSMA and FedRAMP compliance support expertise that you can speak to would be great as well. This is a federal contract, so we do have a number of different federal government compliance and regulations that we have to meet. Information security upkeep and reporting, again, incredibly important. We would expect, and it is documented in the contract, but we would expect weekly updates and the status updates on the status of our security for the infrastructure, but then also consulting on how we might improve that security over time. IAM management and upkeep is also a part of this. So while this is a joint effort between the core here at the board and then the awardee, it is still something where we expect to be able to give requirements. So passwords need to be changed every 60 days, kind of requirements, to the awardee, and then they actually go about the business of enforcing those particular requirements, changing out those passwords, maintaining good IAM policies, and every so often making sure, again, with our policies, making sure that our IAM accounts are well kept. 24/7, 365 on-call support, it is incredibly important. Being able to have a point of contact that if in the unfortunate event that something happened at 10 a.m. on a Sunday, we would be able to contact someone about that. Weekly deployment support is also key. So our team moves at a very fast clip, and we do weekly deployments for the uscurrency.gov website. It is the great responsibility, but also it only happens if we have support from the awardee for this contract to facilitate deployments. DevOps support, again, being that gatekeeper, but also being a good facilitator of communications and operations support. Weekly status meetings, meeting notes, it is a priority. I wouldn't say it's necessarily as great of a priority as all of the other items on this list, but it might be something you want to talk about briefly in your proposal. And advancing to the next slide. So Marletha, thank you so much for this chance to talk about this contract, and I hand it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Jillian. Again, thank you for being with us today. So for those of you who are joining the summer series for the first time, again, welcome. We put these series together, the series of webcasts, to provide you information and resources that you can use during these unprecedented times regarding COVID-19. We're unable to see you in person. We miss everybody. We're hopeful that in the near future, we'll be able to plan our vendor outreach fair again. But until then, we will provide you these webcasts. Again, we would like to thank Jillian for providing us that information. And remember, people, we want you to engage with us. We do have the chat box open for questions. We will take your questions at the end of the webcast. So please indicate when you submit your questions whether your question is relevant to the AWS, the web and mobile application development. Okay, without further ado, we will go right into our next presenter. Let's welcome Bristol Crosby. Bristol.
Hey, thank you so much, Marletha.
Thank you for being with us. So share with our audience your role with the Currency Education Program.
Yeah, absolutely. So in addition to Jill, I'm another digital project manager here at the board with the Currency Education Program. I'll be talking about the website and mobile application development and maintenance services acquisition. So if we can put that presentation up, I can get started. Great, thank you. Just a little overview of the contract. We are looking for a company to partner with us in the development and management of a multilingual Drupal website, as well as native mobile application design, development, and deployment and maintenance. We would expect respondent companies to be skilled in digital and design services with the added capabilities of market research and analysis. The initial period of performance will consist of a base period starting on January 1st, 2021 and ending on December 31st, 2021. In addition to that, we'll have 4 one-year option periods. So the board may extend the contract at the end of each of these option years without formal competition, based on the contractor's satisfactory performance, continued project funding, and of course, subject to the continued need for the contractor to perform the services. Next slide, please. The CEP uses digital platforms to support our efforts to educate, train, and inform the global public about Federal Reserve notes and their security and design features. As Jill mentioned, we have our public site, uscurrency.gov. That's our primary platform that you see here. Next slide, please. We are looking for an organization with experience in website development and maintenance to support our primary and subdomains on an ongoing basis. So with that, to ensure the functionality of the website, such as updating and adding pages, views, blocks, and modules on the Drupal CMS, and the multimedia content contained therein. So we also ask for experience in maintaining foreign language content using Drupal entity translations. Our site is currently fully offered in both English and Spanish, and we do provide the translation for that. We wouldn't expect this contractor to do that work, but familiarization and understanding and experience in working with Drupal entity translations is important. Next slide, please. Currently, our second platform is targeted toward elementary age audiences, and that's the Money Adventure mobile app that Jill mentioned as well. So we've got a couple screenshots here from the app. It is a great app. I would urge you to check it out. It shares the history and symbolism of U.S. currency, as well as interactively teaching the key aspects of identifying an authentic note in a very fun way. And as she mentioned as well, we offer this app in both the Apple App Store and the Google Play Store. This current app and any future mobile applications owned by the CEP are really meant to complement and supplement the communication goals of the website. Next slide. We will need mobile application maintenance and development experience to support these ongoing operations and any updates for Money Adventure. In addition to that, we are seeking a company with proven experience of providing full lifecycle services of native mobile application development and deployment. Next slide, please. In addition to those really big buckets of work, there are 2 additional areas of required work for this contract. The first is in compliance support. We are, we obviously must meet Section 508 requirements for all contractor managed work. And then the second is with regard to information security requirements. So all information systems should meet the security control baselines and assurance requirements outlined in the RFP. So please read over these carefully to ensure that your organization will be able to comply and meet those requirements. A SOC 2 security review is also required and must be validated regularly by an external party. And it will also be helpful to note that at contract closeout, it is important to remember that you will be responsible for performing any required and outlined sanitation procedures regarding all work pertaining to the contract. Now, these have just been a few of the highlights from the statement of work. It's not all-inclusive, and please definitely refer to the final version that comes out onto the street if you issue a proposal. Read over the statement of work and any requirements for reports and deliverables to get a really good understanding of the qualifications and work that are required to meet the contract. Next slide. Now let's talk a little bit about key personnel. Key personnel will be assigned to the contract on a permanent basis. There are specific instructions regarding swapping out an individual or listing someone as key personnel before they are hired, so please make sure to follow those specific instructions. Key personnel must meet the requirements with sufficient credentialed experience, knowledge, skills, and abilities. So when we receive resumes for those key personnel, it should be very clear that they are meeting the requirements listed. Jill made a great point. A year and a half when we ask for 2 years is not going to pass. And finally, key personnel are essential to the work described. As with, like I said, as with the AWS contract, please review the professional requirements carefully. We must be able to verify that the individual proposed meets the requirements outlined in the request. And again, all must sign and adhere to all statements in the NDA provided. Next slide, please. So I'm going to go over just the roles that will be cited in the solicitation. The board requires one or more key personnel and non-key personnel meeting the requirements as stated in the solicitation. So one of the other things to note here is that we expect, a standard working hours availability. So normal working schedule should be maintained during the business hours of 9 to 5 local time, which for us is Eastern, from Monday through Friday of each working week. And individuals should be readily available by email and phone during these times. I'd also like to note that if an individual is working on any portion of the iOS and Android applications, they should have at least one native mobile application successfully deployed and developed and deployed either as an individual or as a member of a team. The specific positions where this is required will be outlined in the solicitation. Another note is that what's shown here on the screen on the slide and the one next is not the full and complete list of required capabilities. It's truncated for your eyes and my voice. So I'm not going to read through this. I'm just going to cover a few of the highlights here. So the project manager is our day-to-day contact, usually our first point of reference. Someone who is responsive and organized is really key here. We need somebody to bring the team together. We're looking for someone who has experience managing federal contracts involving a website or app, and at least 2 or more years managing front-end development or QA team projects as a manager, team leader, or senior team member. The front-end developer must have 4 or more years managing and developing at least 3 publicly available Drupal-based websites, and additionally has Drupal entity translations experience. We would certainly expect this person to have a comprehensive knowledge of HTML5, CSS3, JavaScript, PHP, as well as proficiency in LampStack, MySQL, and JavaScript. For quality assurance, we are looking for analyst, engineer, automation engineers. It's worth noting that QA automation experience alone is not sufficient, as we really need someone, and this is more of a soft skill than a highly demonstratable one by resume, someone who's incredibly detail-oriented and has the ability to catch small details that others, even developers, might miss. So we want someone who is going to catch that similar but incorrect font that's used, or a color that's a shade darker than one that we had used previously on similar work. From a more technical perspective, comprehensive knowledge of desktop and mobile web application testing is very important. We are looking for significant experience with Bash, Ruby, Java, DOM, Ajax, and at least 2 years of experience with QA automation and programming. Next slide, please. A designer, user experience designer, should have at least 2 years of experience completing wireframes for websites, applications, or similar digital products, and can show experience designing engaging, clean, mobile-first, and user-friendly interfaces. They should be adept at gathering requirements, storyboarding, developing user personas, and also understanding the needs of a public sector client interfacing with the global public. For these last two, so the same qualifications or specific things that you'll see in the solicitation, but in general, for native iOS or Android application developers, we require at least 3 years of mobile development experience, 2 years minimum of experience designing, developing, testing, and deploying native mobile solutions using common standards and frameworks for the specific platform. At least one native mobile application successfully deployed as an individual or member of a team. And we're looking for significant experience using RESTful APIs and a strong analytical and debugging skills as well. Next slide, please. For non-technical personnel, we ask that they are experienced and competent in their position. We expect them to adhere to the same guidelines, regulations, and restrictions that we expect of the technical personnel. And any individual conducting any board-related work, and that includes interns or subcontractors, must sign the board-issued NDA. Next slide, please. Finally, in the solicitation, you'll find all the details about how to structure your proposal and what those mandatory requirements are. You must provide thorough information to demonstrate that both your organization as well as the key staff that you list meet the mandatory requirements. Your company, for example, must have a minimum of 5 years experience in providing the services we are requiring, both in type and complexity, to either the federal government, the Federal Reserve System, or to clients of a similar sized workforce. You will have to submit a detailed proposed approach to meeting all of the requirements in the statement of work in the solicitation, within the actual solicitation. So please don't go off of this presentation alone. We want you to look at the full document to really understand all of the key requirements there. Your personnel proposal must include resumes for the appropriate level of staff to fulfill the work proposed in the solicitation, with all of the skills, qualification, experience, and areas of competency that are required and outlined in the solicitation. Letters of intent for employment can be submitted for key personnel that are not currently an employee of your organization. That's what I've got for that. So with that, I'll hand it back to you, Marlisa.
Thank you so much, Crystal. Thank you, Jillian and Crystal, for those wonderful presentations. Before we get into our Q&A, let's just recap a little bit. The three things that I heard that were really, really important is that you really need to read the solicitation in its entirety. In our last webinar, Danielle Calderon provided you tips on winning contracts with the board. She went through and gave you the key information that she wanted you to focus on when you're responding to our solicitation. And Jillian and Crystal just kind of reinstated it by presenting the key requirements for the two solicitations that they'll be working on. And the one thing that I heard, you will have to sign a board's NDA. So those three things are your three takeaways today. Read the solicitation in its entirety. Make sure that your firm at least meets the minimum mandatory requirements before responding to the board solicitation. And you will have to sign an NDA. So I will bring all the panelists back on so that we can answer a few of your questions. Let's see, I'm going to go through these questions, and this is the exciting part of the show because we have to actually read these questions, and our panelists will provide the answers for you. Oh, one other thing, we will provide the presentation for those of you who are joining us today, so you will have an opportunity to review the presentation at a later time. So our first question is, our company provides historical content research, narrative development, and image acquisition. Would you consider website and app content development as a component of this acquisition, or is that work done in-house or through another vehicle? I believe that would be Crystal's question.
You know, I'm not sure the answer to that. I'm not clear whether or not, you know, digital design is the primary work that you do, and then this is additional work that's being provided. So I'm not sure that I really understand the
the person who submitted that question, if you would just email me after the webcast, we can definitely further research your question and provide you an answer to that question. Another question is, will both solicitations be released to the market in October? And that answer is yes. We will provide both solicitations during the October time frame. Let's see, another question. How will you be notified to proceed following this webinar? And I think what you're asking is, how do you know you'll be included in the solicitation? So for those of you who registered, we ask you to identify which solicitation you would be interested in. So we're going to take a look over that, and that's how we're going to compile our bidders list to include you in the solicitation. Remember, you have to be invited to participate in our acquisitions. We do not advertise our solicitation, so we do ask you to go to our website and register your company so that when we do our market research, you will be included and considered for upcoming acquisitions. We are in the process of finalizing our acquisition forecast for 2021 and 2022. So as soon as that is finalized, we will actually email the forecast to those who have been participating in our summer series. So make sure your firm is registered in our database so that you can receive information regarding our upcoming forecast for 2021 and 2022. We'll take a few more questions. I'll take a look here and see what we have. Are you currently in AWS? So that's a question for Jillian.
Yes. Yes is the short answer. And the longer answer is yes, our infrastructure in AWS is already built.
So let's see here. Yes, there is a link to the registration portal. One of the questions is there a link to our registration portal? Yes, if you would visit the board's website, we will provide the contact information at the end. And most of you have my contact information as well. But if you would just visit the board's website, we have a registration portal for you to register your firm in our database. So there's a question. We are a WOSB and an 8A firm. Does FRB award direct awards to qualified 8A companies? So for those of you who've been working with the board for quite some time, you know that we do not follow the FAR. We are an independent federal agency, so we have an acquisition policy that is very similar to the FAR. So we do not have set-asides for WOSB or 8A companies. But I can tell you we do have a simplified acquisition process that the board has. But as far as making direct awards to 8A companies, we do not do that. But we do have a developmental contract that we utilize with some of our program people regarding providing small businesses an opportunity to learn how to do business with us as well. But we do not award to 8A firms or WOSB. So can you provide the panelists' contact information? That answer is yes and no. So you already have my contact information. I get all of your emails and I try to respond to all of your questions. Jessica Chu is your contact information. We want to make sure that when this webcast is over, that you reach out to Jessica, and this is only after you have received a copy of the solicitation offer and award. So I ask you not to send Jessica 200 emails prior to October because, you know, I'm her advocate. I'm going to just tell her, just don't answer. If you guys have questions prior to the solicitation hitting the street, just reach out to me and I'll definitely try to answer your questions. But Jessica Chu is your contract management analyst for these acquisitions. So you will have her contact information to collaborate with her once the contract has gone out to market. Let's see, any other questions? Another question, do you anticipate a need for data management, business intelligence, and analytic consulting services? Crystal or Jillian, is that anything that you know of that may be coming up in the currency education program?
Don't believe so, not that I'm immediately aware of.
Okay. And what is the period of performance for your AWS infrastructure management opportunity?
Yeah, so it would obviously start with award, and then there would be additional option years after that.
Okay. Do we have any more questions coming in? We have, this must be a really, really quiet group because normally we have tons of questions. Any additional questions? Okay. So, Jillian, do you have any last remarks regarding the solicitation that would be helpful to the audience?
Please read the solicitation carefully. even you know, subsections of subsections, if it's there for a reason. You consider it important.
Another question for you and Crystal, do you allow teaming agreements on your projects?
You know, I kind of feel like that would be something that Jessica would need to weigh in on.
So we do allow teaming agreements, but this is something that you as the potential supplier will have to do on your own. If you would like to partner or team with a business, we totally allow that. So yes, that would be yes to that question. Another question, is there an opportunity to work remotely for the cloud architect?
So for the AWS contract, there actually is no on-premises option in that you would not work on board premises. You and your staff would all be remote. So yes, if the proposed personnel for the AWS architect was remote from your company, that is fine by me, so long as they meet all of the other requirements that are in the solicitation.
Okay, we've had a few more questions come in. Do you allow briefing for vendors to come in and do demonstrations for their capabilities? We do allow, prior to COVID-19, we allow vendors to come in to meet with the procurement staff to present their capabilities. But for these two solicitations, due to COVID-19, we're actually providing this webcast to provide you some information to help you, put together your proposal, find your teaming agreement, or to look over to see if you have the key requirements that it takes to be considered for this solicitation. Let's see, another question. Someone wants to know, how will they get the slide deck again? So for those of you who registered, we will email the slide deck to you probably tomorrow regarding this webcast so you can have the information. Let's see. I'm not for sure what this question means. Are the two contracts OCI against each other? I'm not for sure what that means. So if you want to resubmit that question, we'll be more than happy to answer it for you. Oh, are the two contracts conflict of interest against each other? I guess you're asking, can one supplier respond to both solicitation? Is that the question? So Jillian and Crystal, can you? Yes. So yes, it is a conflict of interest. So you will have to select which of the two you would like to respond to. We have a few more minutes. Crystal, would you like to jump in and share with us any last remarks regarding your upcoming acquisition?
You know, Jill really said it all. We're really looking for somebody that can read that solicitation very closely and be able to address all of the work requirements as well as the staffing requirements that we need to be able to fulfill the work.
Okay. I want to clarify. I think the question came in regarding the conflict of interest. If Jillian and Crystal could speak to that, is there a conflict of interest for the supplier to bid on both of those contracts or not?
So I'm not sure about all of the potential procurement regulations there, but from my personal point of view, I don't think that we would prevent it again if the potential awardee responded to both solicitations, they met all of the requirements, they ended up, otherwise being the best option for both of those solicitations. I personally wouldn't take issue with one awardee covering both potential contracts.
Okay. And Jessica, can you speak to how you would like to communicate with vendors once this hit the streets? I do know that while the contract is out to market and as the solicitation comes in, I do know there will be another period of time where they can provide question and answers. Would you like to speak to that? So if we don't get to all the questions today, that the vendors can be rest assured that you will get their questions answered for them. And that's for Jessica.
So once the solicitation is emailed to you because you have made it to the bidders list, there will be a period of time for questions and answers on the solicitation. And ideally, all questions will be answered, and then the solicitation will close for proposals.
Okay, we have a few more questions. Does your Drupal installation, I'm hoping I'm pronouncing that correctly, does your Drupal installation supports the paragraph module and a component-based architecture? If not, a module layout would be worth exploring.
Jill, do you want to address that? I'm not completely up to speed. I apologize. Jill is the current, has been the manager for the website for the last few years, so she would be able to answer that a little bit better than I would right now.
Okay, Jillian, can you speak to that question, please?
Yeah, so I really appreciate the recommendation on a component-focused architecture for the site. I will say that we have a particular architecture for the site, but I feel like at this time with such a broad audience, kind of discussing that is kind of like going into the weeds. I think if that's something that you could bring to the table, maybe put it in your proposal.
So are you saying that's an exception? You want them to make an exception when they're submitting their proposal that you'd be willing to consider?
So I think there's not necessarily an exception to be made for whether or not they would recommend a component-focused Drupal architecture. But if that is something that you would recommend, and that's something you have expertise in, feel free to put it in your proposal. But again, Crystal and I will both be looking for the items that are actually in those solicitations, as these are requirements for us.
Okay, and Jillian, since you have the mic, one more question for you. Can you say anything about the size of the AWS environment that we are currently using?
It is varied and extensive. So I would say that we have been working and evolving this AWS infrastructure that we currently have in our architecture for about 5 years now. So that's sort of where it is in its maturity and in its life. Keeping that in mind as you propose personnel might also be good, something good to do.
Okay, do we have any more questions? Let's see, let me check a few. We have questions coming in 2 different areas, so let me take a look here to see. Okay, I think this concludes our questions. I would like to thank our panelists again for joining us today to provide this very, very informative information. So, Crystal, Jillian, and Jessica, thank you so very much for providing these key requirements for the upcoming acquisitions in the United States Currency Education Program. And guys, we want you to learn more about the Currency Education Program. We want you to know your money. We want you to follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and also save the date, September 9th. I believe that's on a Wednesday. The Currency Education Group will present additional solicitations that they'll be procuring this year. Although Jessica mentioned that the solicitations will go out in October, our plan is to make the awards at least by December 31st. So please save the date for September 9th to find out regarding additional solicitations. And again, I would like to thank our amazing panel for a fantastic job today. Thank you so very much. So, and I hope to the audience that this has been very, very informative to you. And we want you to remember the Federal Reserve remains committed to assisting the businesses during this pandemic. We want you to be successful in winning contracts with the Federal Reserve, because when you win contracts, you create jobs. You create jobs within the communities you live and the communities we serve to promote a healthy economy and a healthy financial stability. And for that, I would like to say thank you, stay safe, and until the next time, thank you.